Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel, I had an interesting experience today because ever since like in the last 5 years, the first 55, 60 years of my life, I had great hearing, always had great hearing, not a problem, despite the fact that when I was in my teens and 20s, I was a rock and roll guitarist, so I exposed myself to all that stuff. But somehow I managed to maintain my hearing until I reached about 60, and then all of a sudden my ears started filling up with wax. And I started having to go get the procedures, to pull out the cerumen and all that. And I didn't know why it was starting all of a sudden. And quite honestly, they don't know why. Nobody really understands why that happens. So anyway, I went to get it done again today. This is like the third time in the last 3 or 4 years. And as so often happens, you get the wax out and all of a sudden, oh, wow, the hearing is back. I forgot those tones were missing, so you're hearing really clearly. There was an additional piece to it, though, that I hadn't anticipated, and I kind of wish I had because maybe I would have done it sooner. But I forgot that when you get all that hearing back, it's a lift. It's a psychological lift. You feel better. All of a sudden, life felt better than it did when I walked into the doctor's office, just by having that process done. So, I mean, listeners, if you have been considering getting your ears cleaned out, do it. It pays off. But also take advantage of that lift that you get just because, wow, I can celebrate hearing that I haven't been able to celebrate in a while. That's a big deal.
That is. I think not only is it a psychological lift, like you're saying, but also there's as we age, there's this, countdown subconsciously in our head. And one of the things you're checking off the list is my reduced vision, my reduced hearing, my joint pain, stuff you hear other people talk about. So when you have a procedure that sort of like counteracts that, wow, my hearing's still pretty good. There's a lift of just longevity attached to that.
Definitely. No doubt about that. And in fact, health, you mentioned health in there. Health is one of the things I'm really working on, trying to get myself. I'm actually getting myself into a better place of health than I was, say, 4 years ago. And the first indication of that is, I think it was 4 years ago, I was at my heaviest ever, which for me, it was around 235 pounds. And I am down now to 203.
Nice.
And just by, eating right and no special dieting or anything like that. Just eat it right and don't indulge in the sugars and all that kind of thing. And I'm down and that feels better because that's not something that is generally easy to do later on in life. It's easier to do when you have the higher metabolism earlier in life.
Sure.
But it turns out that you can do it later. And not only can you do it, but it gives you an energy lift in the same kind of way as getting your ears cleaned out. It has that same kind of effect.
Yes. And, I don't know your exercise regimen, but I know you do dancing or used to. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I dance frequently, 3 or 4 times a week. I do other exercise too. Yeah. So I'm not a gym nut, but I do the dance. Lately I haven't been walking because I have an Achilles injury I've been dealing with. But once that's ironed out, then I will be getting back to that as well. I do some minor calisthenics here around the house. So yeah, I'm pretty active.
Good. Well, I mean, there's nothing more anti-aging than exercise and eating well. That's the ultimate goal there.
Well, I think there is one thing that I will point to that's maybe just a tad better, and this is going to be true for all the things that we aim for, and that is what your mindset is.
Well, yeah.
In fact, that's kind of the thought process behind today's title, because last week we finished off the show talking about some side hustles and how valuable they are, and we figured, okay, let's make that a topic today. Once again, that's a mindset thing, first and foremost. And the better the job that we can do, even when we're not feeling it. This is something I've been dealing with a lot this year, particularly after the divorce and the separation from my ex-wife. Dealing with mindset on the day-to-day basis really comes to the fore when you go through something like that. You become very aware of not only how important it is, but how difficult it is to get there and then even to stay there for a bit. So I guess what I'm saying is I've come to appreciate mindset this year almost more than any other time in my life.
Really? That's spectacular. Good.
Yeah. Well, I think it is. Well, you have to celebrate these things, right? Little things, that's a thing to celebrate. That's a thing to feel good about.
It is. And when you break it down and I'm literally do this for a living, the mindset coaching and all that, but when you automatically are preloaded to that mindset of, and I know this sounds so cliche, and I like to really get into this statement. Just the fact of waking up, just that single fact, is not a privilege afforded to many. It's the option is to not be able to enjoy all this incredible stuff going on. So mindset is when you wake up, and no matter what's in front of you, I woke up today. Let's start with that, and from that you move forward to being able to like exercise. I am ridiculous in the gym. It's just way really extra, as I am extra on most things, but the gym is extra. However, there's nothing that feels better. It's exhausting. But yet the fact that I can, I still have the strength that I have and do that. It's such a positive mindset. And on Monday morning, when you go in the gym and you have an incredible workout, no matter what I face the rest of the week, I accomplished that start, which sets the tone. And that's what everything is possible. We're going to be hearing that a little bit today in the concept of the side hustle too. It's
yeah. Well, the side hustle thing that addresses one of the big three. That's what I call them. The three things that are most influential in a person's life, and the things that are most motivating to people who want to learn how to apply the law of attraction or how to make an improvement in their life. And those, of course, are finances, relationships, and health. That combination, some combination of those three pretty much dominates everybody. And side hustles, that's the key piece of how I think perhaps side hustles is probably the easiest fix to any of those three. And by fix, I don't mean like you're permanently repaired or something like that. I mean a way to improve the situation so that you're able to attract better. But what's your take?
Oh, absolutely. And this is going to be very offensive to the people that believe we live in really bad times. So I apologize. They may need a safe space. I hope they seek that out. But the idea that we live in a time where you can not leave your house, create content, there's so many opportunities. I have some incredibly talented young men that didn't know they were talented young men, and the young ladies too. It's just mainly the guys that are into this, that have created these side hustles and turned them into incredible wealth. One of my star clients, his name's Judson, and he lets me use his name. He will be on our show one day. I keep forgetting to ask him, but
bring him in. Yeah, I would love to talk to him.
Yeah. I'm sure he might not be listening live, but he listens to every show. And this young man, several years ago, I'm going to get into what his personal stuff is dealing with, but he was going through a really rough time, and he really didn't have any direction. And his family was sort of saying, you need to go get a job, or you need to, traditional job, and you need to do this. And he was doing a lot of research on Amazon reselling and the different things you can do with that. And I don't know if I've ever seen anyone put in as much sincere effort, excited effort. He started his business and started building it. And he's at an incredible rate that he does it now. He has it on autopilot in a lot of ways. He still works very efficiently, but he's creating a large sum of money. He's investing. He buys S&P 500 stock and the spider shares and all that. He's very young. He's going to be buying his first house probably this year.
Wow.
This young man's going to be a millionaire by the time he's 30. It's just he's not stoppable. And it starts with a mindset. He was dealing with a lot of stuff, and he had a lot of other feedback saying you need to go get a traditional job and work your way up, or you need to go do that. And he proved everybody wrong. We sat with his family members in my office, and we said, well, let's just try this out for a while. If it doesn't work, he can always get a traditional job. He put his foot on the gas pedal and never looked back. Now they're just saying, wow, he has a young man, somebody that's really young that has a credit score of, in the upper 700s and is working it's just unheard of today. But he's a massive believer in the law of attraction. He applied the law of attraction to his side hustle. So side hustles are best fueled. They meet the law of attraction requirements. It's like you're in charge. Your mindset does this. And like, for example, with Judson, he did not have a blueprint. He had to go study. It's all out there, but there was nobody giving him the information. He had to go take the information. And He tried a bunch of stuff that worked. He got ripped off by some guys selling this information, went right. But he eventually learned it, developed it, and he can teach classes on this now. And so the reason I say this about him in particular, several other young clients, that to make this work, there has to be a belief it can work. So many people start off saying, well, that wouldn't work for me, or it's too hard. It's certainly not too hard. It works for everyone that tries it. And, once you get one side hustle going, my mindset and direction is create another, multiple streams of revenue that aren't dependent on each other, some on automatic. So, example for me, I recommend a lot of products to people. They're not my products, but protein powders I use or supplements I use, I've always vetted the best of the best. And so Amazon sells them all. So I became an affiliate with Amazon. And so when somebody says, what protein do you recommend? I just send them my affiliate link. It costs them no money at all. They buy it from me and I get a small amount, 7, 8, 9, 10%, depending on the product. I don't do anything but send these links. Well, last month I made $750 just on links. Now, that's not changing my lifestyle, but it's just, that's a neat little thing that people that think these things can't have. And I'm not making it a priority. It's just when somebody asks, and I will always just give the disclaimer, this is my link. You don't have to buy from my link, but it doesn't cost you anymore, and I'll get a few pennies. So, it's not ripping anybody off, and it's a very passive side hustle. So the other one that we were talking about that a young man is doing that fascinates me, and I'm going to do this I'm going to maybe do this and then do a sort of a video chronicling me doing this, because I think this is fascinating. Yeah. So and I describe this on Facebook to a lot of my friends. So what he does is he will find an interesting topic to him. It might be current events. It might be whatever. And he will go to one of the AI sources and he will put in a prompt such as, describe the connection between the law of attraction and quantum theory, quantum science or physics. And it prints out really nice. So what he'll say is, create a script for a YouTube video on comparing and contrasting quantum theory and the law of attraction. And it prints out this script. So he has this guy on Fiverr that is, for those of you who know Fiverr, there's a lot of workers, online workers, often from overseas, work very reasonably. And he found a guy that does animated videos. He puts an automated voice on there and creates a video just sort of matching what's being talked about. And then he posts them on his YouTube channel. And then he promotes little ads all over the place. He uses TikTok and Instagram to drive people to his YouTube channel. And he's making, he started with, a few $100s and $1,000. And, I think this last month he made almost $4,000 on automated videos that took him less than 5 minutes to do it. The guy a couple of days to do, and all he did is post it. No effort. And and in his description, he goes, this information is from AI. This is not, so he's not lying. He's not misleading anyone. It's good information and it's getting tons of views. And so he'll look at what the trending topics and do a video on that. He might have, 20 videos go up in a week. And then once you get a certain number of subscribers with YouTube and a certain number of views, then you can monetize it and have little ads on there. And that's what he's done. And it's amazing. So anybody, old people, young people, there's a belief that there's a technology barrier here. It is simply as easy as I just told you. I am not at all tech savvy, but I do understand there's people that are. Let's get it done. So the reason I like this is we live in an economy that you may look at, the nation has $30 trillion in debt. This is going on. We have this inflation. Or we look at an economy that there's unlimited opportunity. There hasn't been a year since 1995. That's when I get my recovery turned around. That I haven't made more money than I made the year before. Inflation, and again, I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but how I defeat inflation? I inflate my income. That's pretty simple for me. Just inflate it more. And the more you do that, it's so mindset based, but there's just limitless numbers of things out there that require very little training. And even if it is, it's still worth the while to do it. But to me, like you're saying, there's a negative mindset even if you have a regular job, whatever, if you're passionate about something, create one of these side hustles, additional streams of revenue that are really easy to handle. It's amazing stuff. So I love this topic today because it is the law of attraction put in action a lot of times.
I love a number of things about the story you just told, particularly about the young guy who does the YouTube videos. One of the key pieces that I really want to pull out there, you kind of touched on it, but I want to really draw it out, is that he started doing these. He would use the AI to create the script, hand it off to somebody that he found on Fiverr.com, and have them turn it into an animated video. And he was doing, what'd you say, 20 a week or something like that. He was doing that for quite some time with no income. There was no income coming in. I don't know what the time period, it could have been months, it could have been years. There's no way of knowing without knowing his particular history, but it could literally be any amount of time. The thing that really jumps out at me when I hear a story like that is he persisted. There was no money coming in, and he just kept doing it because he had belief in himself, and he had belief in what was happening. He was seeing little tiny increments in the number of people watching, and he was seeing more and more comments and so forth. And he wasn't letting himself be, disturbed about the fact that the money wasn't coming in yet. He just, I'm just going to keep putting these things out. Yeah, it's costing me some money to pay these guys on Fiverr each time, but I'm just going to keep putting them out and putting it out and putting it out. I'm just going to keep going and going and going. And the reason I mention that is, over particularly the last 3 or 4 years, we've had a lot of guests on the topic of success with business, success with careers, success starting businesses, financial successes, all kinds of things like that. And the one theme that has come through over and over and over again from all of them is that the reason that they succeed and that people who don't follow their methods don't succeed is that they persist. They just kept going. No matter what happened, they just kept pushing and just doing and doing. And basically doing it out of love for what they were doing. They allowed the love to get them through the hard part until finally one day they had a breakthrough.
And that is such a, are you familiar? I know you are. It's a rhetorical question. The authors of the book, Chicken Soul for the Soup. Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Chicken Soup for the Soul, the other one, yeah.
There's that fantastic ADHD brain in full force right there, bro. So anyway.
Jack Canfield and I can't remember what the other guy.
Yeah. Jack Canfield went on to be wildly successful. The other guy is too. I don't remember his name. So that's a self-published book that they spent years promoting, and it was not getting any traction. It's almost to the give up point, but they never did give up. And then whatever the chain of events, and I don't know what it was, he says it, I don't remember it, but there's a chain of events that happened. And all of a sudden, it's one of the all-time bestsellers, huge seller, huge, and they have multiple versions of that chicken soup for the kids, and other things. But it's all over the place, published in a bunch of different languages. It's brilliant, and it's law of attraction, positive stuff. But it's just the fact that he was able to come up with it and not give that the resilience piece in any of these things is the key.
Yeah, actually, if I remember correctly, that story got told in the book you hand out to everybody, The Secret. I think it's in the movie as well. And if I remember right, the way it worked, like you said, it had this book. It was just kind of there. It wasn't really getting anywhere. But he had been working with W. Clement Stone, the famous author and motivator and businessman. And Stone had challenged him to go for something that he didn't think was even possible for him to get. Now, this would have been early 1980s. And at that point in time, I think he said his income was like $8,000 or $9,000 a year, which for that era was an okay income. It wasn't a bad income. It wasn't a great income. It was an okay income. And so he decided, well, I'm going to aim for a $100,000 income. And he had no idea how to accomplish it. Not a clue in the world. In fact, I remember you remember in the Secret, he describes how he takes I think it was a $1 bill or a $10 bill, and he turns it into a $100,000 bill and pastes it on his ceiling above his bed so you can see it every morning. Right? Remember that?
Yeah.
But he still didn't know how he was going to do it. And then one day he was in the supermarket and he saw the National Enquirer, which he had never really looked at before, never thought about. And he said, well, a lot of people read that. If somehow I could get in there, that would probably generate some sales. And then shortly after that, he gave a talk at some university, and one of the people in the audience was a contributor to the National Enquirer who asked to interview him and do an article which got published in the National Enquirer, which led to all these sales, which had his book take off.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, what a crazy
Yeah.
story. But that's the way it works when you persist.
The persistence and the positive, it doesn't mean you're always jumping up and down joyful. Oh, this is great. I don't have any money, but the belief that it's on the way, the belief that it's already there eventually. And, the idea that I gave this advice to, there's a lady in California that I was doing a few coaching sessions with, and she's an author for children's books. And they're really good books. She actually worked briefly with Mr. Rogers in an internship. And
Oh, wow.
so we were talking about, just general things. That wasn't the topic of my coaching, but she happened to mention that to me. And she said, yeah, I've self-published some books, but they really haven't done anything. And so we started talking more and more about that. And I said, do you have that in your, did you mention you worked with Mr. Rogers? I mean, again, she's very humble and didn't like to, I'm like, look, I can't let go of the book thing here. Let's go back to that. So I recommended about a year ago, I suggested she go to a lot of podcasts like we do. Just find them. These not gigantic Joe Rogans. You're not going to get on those, but just email all these podcasts and say, can I go on a show and talk about book? Psychology, child psychology, but it could be anything, spirituality. And she just started doing that once or twice a week. And then she realized just about everybody should said, yes, we always need people. We need people. Back in the day, especially, you'd love to get that email. So, she started doing that. Somebody might only have, 5,000 listeners or whatever that may be, but she started getting increase in books. And the more podcasts she did, the more it went up. Then one day, somebody had a podcast that somebody famous sort of listened to. So they told one of the bigger podcasters about it. Again, she became a best-selling author based on just going and promoting her book free through podcasts.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, anybody who has anything that they have thought about, wouldn't it be great if I could do it through podcasts? Yes, you can. And I'll even give you a resource that you can use because it's the one that I use when I want to get guests. It's called Podmatch, podmatch.com. And you do pay for an account, but it's actually better that you're paying for an account because you're getting quality matches that way. I've had a few matches that weren't really high quality. Interestingly enough, the few that were not high quality were ones who had been part of their program before they started doing the pay for program. So they were not paying for the service, and they turned out to be the more problematic ones. But once they went to everybody paying for it, the quality just went through the roof. I literally now, Joel, I don't take any other sources for getting people onto the show. It's always Podmatch.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so that's the stuff that, it's little things like that. So imagine, you can give me, a childhood, a book for kids about anxiety. Give me a book, you can have AI write it. You can have AI illustrate it. I mean, it's all yours. It's yours, but not yours. I mean, it's open. I'm a big believer in being clear in content. I wouldn't use the AI. If I ever published a book made of AI, it would be clearly an AI published book. I would not claim it to be my own.
Right.
But I do use AI to get ideas for my writing, but I'm never using the word. It just makes me think a certain different way sometimes. But the side hustles out there, they're limitless. But more than the side hustles, as you said in the beginning, which I love that you brought this up, the mindset of make them work. I've seen people that get into side hustles and I've told a couple of clients, these are good people, I'm not being critical of them, about the Amazon reselling, for example. I said, look it up, start looking it up, start researching. And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. And I go, well, you don't. You need to research. There's tons of free YouTube videos out there. There's tons of Instagram stuff out there. Just research. You're going to school. I told my friend Judson, my client Judson, that this is college. He literally put an equivalent of getting a master's degree in this kind of stuff in his work. He studied a lot. He learned a lot. He got bad stuff. He got good stuff, but he was resilient and never quit. And he's wildly successful and keep being wildly successful. He's going to eventually hire people to run his business for him. And, we have a plan in place from his resilience, but he had to learn it. So there's a lot of people that automatically say, well, that doesn't work. Well, no, it doesn't work day one. You're not willing to do the work. Side hustle doesn't mean no work. It means you get directed energy to what you want to do. When you're passionate about doing something, I don't even consider it work, but nobody, play the lottery if you're wanting that big win without doing any effort. But the side hustles are not playing the lottery. They're multiple things to do. You especially in this amazing age of all this information, as artificial intelligence advances, the connectivity of people, this is the best of times. While I know some of people believe it's the worst of times, but it is the really best of time in the history of our world to be able to make a large amount of money or even a little money just by doing some basic stuff without even leaving your home. You don't have to have a car. You can level the playing field by doing it from home if you need to. But I just love that we live in this time. So when you look at all this, it's what I think we've sort of manifested this thing. And yes, there's a whole bunch of negative stuff about AI possibly. I did watch The Terminator, so I know the possibilities. But the reality of right now it's so exciting to me. And it matches my teachings, my beliefs perfectly. I'm always listening to new ideas. I'm always, using the stuff out there. And, again, I love having multiple streams of revenue that some are very passive. You don't have to do anything with them. And it's just there. I don't know when I was a teenager, there was none of this available. So I just find it a great time to be alive.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree with you on that. And there's another piece that I think is important to mention, which is it doesn't all go well. In fact, a lot of it goes wrong.
Yeah.
There was a really cool Instagram. I guess they call it they don't call it a real story. I'm not sure what they call it. I don't know Instagram real well, but it's one of these deals where you're recording video and you're doing it in a series.
Right.
And he did a video. He was actually driving in his car while he did this video, which we do not recommend, but nevertheless, that's what he was doing. And in the course of doing this video, he was basically just kind of rhapsodizing on people think about somebody who's famous like a Will Smith, and they think how successful they are. And they don't realize all the different failures that person had leading up to that success. There was that breakthrough success, and all of a sudden, like, wow, they're instant success on the world stage, but the instant success happened after about 15 years of failures.
Yes.
You have to kind of take that into account, which, by the way, is one reason why we don't recommend playing the lottery. But the point is that I like, for my own story, and you know my story real well, Joel, because you and I talked a lot both on and off the podcast. I had a tendency, and still do to a certain extent, I had a tendency to jump from one project to the next. I do a project for a bit, I get burned out on it, or I get disillusioned by it, and I try something new and try something new and try something new. It took me a while, with some help from you, to realize I just needed to pick one and go with it. I just had to just go and just keep going and going and going and going on that one project. And when I started adopting that viewpoint, it didn't make it any easier. It's not like the failures became any less or were any less frustrating or anything like that. They were just as frustrating as ever. They were just as many of them and so forth. But I set myself up for having some successes that I could build on. And they came slowly, but they came. They came and they came and they came. And now I'm to a point now, I'm not wealthy yet. I'm very close, I think. But I've gotten myself to a point where I think I'm on a track now that is actually going to produce the results that I'm looking for. And more importantly, going to produce the results that I'm looking for in a way that feels good to me. Yeah. I kept trying to find that ideal approach. If I found the ideal approach, that would feel good. But that's actually backward.
Right.
It's actually backward. You have to find the thing that feels good and then go try and do it. And I didn't realize the importance of that.
And the ideas that you're talking about, so much of a mindset, failure instructs. Failure, the most neuroplastic your brain, your ability to have neuroplasticity in your brain is most intense after a failure. Failure instructs. Athletes do best learning after they fail. The brain absorbs things faster, better. It doesn't want to fail again, but when you fail and quit, you're not allowing the process to happen. When you fail, there was you would know this more than I am, but what was the first Microsoft Windows that came out? It was like 3.2 Microsoft whatever. There was
3.1 was the first release. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I heard it interview with Bill Gates about his wealth one time, and said, "Well, you just sort of, you got lucky with this thing. You made a lot of money." And he looked at him and he goes, "What do you mean lucky?" And he goes, "Well, you just found something everybody wanted." He goes, and he said, "What was the first Microsoft we released? 3.1." He goes, "Do you realize there was a zero? There was a
And a
one
one and a two
what?"
and variations of each one.
Yeah, yeah. And he said,
And they all failed.
and they all failed miserably.
They
And
did.
he
And
said,
3.1 was no piece of, no picnic in the park. That thing just crashed all over the place. It was terrible.
that's what he said. But he needed to get something launched, and he made that point. It was terrible, but it was something, and there was hope. And then all of a sudden, now there's motivation to make that better. We cured that. We fixed that faster. And then we did the other ways because now we had something tangible to fix and work off of. We had some stuff working great, some stuff not. The failures instructed us where energy needed to be. And I was just, it made such sense, the idea that everybody, oh yeah, he got lucky. No, he didn't. I mean, he is very, obviously a very wealthy man, but I mean, the fact that the idea that he just turned on 3.1 and became a multi-billionaire, it didn't happen that way.
No, not even close. Yeah. That's a really, really important point too. That, that luck that happens, that seeming luck that happens is backed by all this crap that you go through. It's amazing how much crap you can go through to get to that place you need to be. But what happens every step of the way is you're learning about yourself. You're not just learning about the thing, you're learning about yourself.
Yes.
And you're getting, I love the line from, have you seen the Ted Lasso TV series?
I have not watched
Apple
it
TV?
all, but I love it. I haven't watched it all yet.
Okay. Well, then if you've watched season one, then you've seen the psychologist who comes in and provides counseling to the team. And one of the things I love is the phrase that she uses, which is the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. And that really summarizes the process. Because every step of the way, you're pissed off. I'm like, well, that didn't work. Well, that was just a disaster. Oh my God, I can't believe this is going. It's one piss off after another, but through all that, you find the truth.
And that's the process to get where you get is, my path to where I'm sitting today is not a pretty path. It certainly wasn't straight uphill.
Right.
It was, we had to go some deep side roads there to get to where we're at. But the concept that I believe all those steps were necessary to get me where I'm at today. So when you take in side hustles or life, like one of the most dedicated things about resilience I ever heard is Jeff Bezos when he was building Amazon, and his goal was to sell a few books, and there's a picture of him with a printed sign from an old dot matrix printer, Amazon. It's at a desk in his garage.
I've seen that one. I love that pic.
Yeah. And as he was growing the company, I don't know this is the rough version of the story, but I'm paraphrasing. There was a time where there was some pretty significant no money, and there was no way to get money.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was his in-laws maybe that took out a mortgage so he could literally make payroll one time. And in exchange for that, fortunately, they got a couple shares of stock at the bank. But that didn't mean anything because there was a chance Amazon was going to fail. Yeah. And so he never gave up. He never got his vision went from a few books to selling absolutely everything on the planet to everyone and dropping it off your house in record time. And great customers, that became his thing. Not only did his in-laws, assuming that's who was the one that loaned the money, I'm pretty sure it was, they were rewarded in an amazing way. They're all billionaires. It's just, it's amazing how that happens. But he didn't, there's a lot of criticism of him, but at the end of the day, he started this again at a desk by himself. And it sounds absurd to the people he was talking to. Why would you sell books? Why would you sell books? It doesn't make any sense. And
especially since Barnes and Noble was leading the field at that point and like they were untouchable.
Yeah, they were crushing everybody, and so I personally, and I tell that story with a great, I have a lot of shares of Amazon and Microsoft, so I'm really grateful for those stories. I've done really well with them over the years, and that's the difference in mindset more than side hustles today, which is a great topic. I love it, but mindset is always the underlying key to everything we talk about. because the belief that you are a victim of the everything going on, that everything's falling apart, there's nothing out there, the economy's terrible, all that sells that you're helpless and hopeless, and you buy into that. You become a victim of that mindset. Or if you realize, again, there's never been an easier time to make a boatload of money in so many different things. The problem is most people don't want to go do that stuff we're talking about. I want you to give me the answer so I can just do it without having to do the research or do the stuff. And that didn't happen. Side hustles do require some research, some work,
They do.
and sometimes quite a bit of work to get really proficient at it. But it's just the freedom when you see somebody. I had a young man that was dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety and was scared to drive in the city limits. I mean, he was just dealt with a lot, very young. And he changed his mindset. He started one of these side hustles, now he's driving all over the eastern part of the United States, getting product and selling. He has a great life. And he one day told me, we were talking, so you sort of forgot to be anxious, didn't you? He goes, yeah, I don't have time to be anxious anymore. I just don't have time. And because his life improved so much, the anxiety and the fear of what was going to happen has been replaced with the belief and the true belief that he's there's nothing to worry about. That's the thing. There is nothing to worry about. And if you just take these actions, and I'm not selling any one thing, so don't think Joel's trying to sell you a product. I'm just saying the idea's there. The ideas are there. You know, the affiliate marketing, there's things you can do that you never have to sell a product. You could be influencers on Instagram, TikTok. One of the great stories, in fact, I might ask him and his dad to be on the show. There's this kid that he's on Instagram, and for some reason, because I have a lot of weightlifters and stuff on my, because of all the powerlifting I do. So he somehow popped up my feed. He's a little kid, probably 12 or 13, and he lifts weights. And he's, he's a 12-year-old bodybuilder, he calls himself. Right. So not a lot of building there, but he's working hard. And he also, what he did was he just started posting his workouts, saying real positive stuff. He got a couple of, promoter. He was able to be like, have, what do you call that when you have their products or whatever? You
sponsor?
Yeah, sponsored, semi-sponsored, not full sponsored, but yeah, we'll give all your people 10% off, and we'll give you 20% off.
Okay, yeah.
So several of the bigger bodybuilders saw him, thought it was, strong mindset. So they started tagging him and doing videos with him side by side.
Nice.
So this kid went from like 1,000 followers. The last I saw was 39,000 followers.
Wow.
He has all this, and he's cross-promoting. He's giving motivational talks. Again, this is a 12-year-old kid. So if this may take care of him for the rest of his life at this rate, I don't know if it will or not, but I do know that public speaking, he will be able to sell anything. He's already selling product at 12 years old. He's passionate about what he does. And just the fact that you watch that unfold, I just find, again, I really am excited. He is too young to be scared of the concept that he can't do, and he can't do it. Yeah. He didn't know that. He didn't know that. That's
a really great point too. If you don't realize that you can fail, that you're up against tough forces and so forth, that sets you up for the perfect mindset.
Yeah.
Of course, most of us do have to deal with that. I actually you dropped some names there. You dropped, Jeff Bezos, who formed Amazon, and Bill Gates, who formed Microsoft, and so forth. I'm going to drop another name. This is a controversial name. This is the name of a guy who I admire, but I also think there's a part of him that's crazy. I'll just say that up front. But his name is Elon Musk. And one thing I really admire about Elon Musk is the way he built up his SpaceX business. And the reason I admire it is because he introduced a concept that flew in the face of the way NASA built up their program. The concept was summarized in 4 words: fail early, fail often.
Yes.
And he was trying to teach his engineers, make as many mistakes as you can as fast as you can.
Yes.
I don't care how many rockets you blow up. I don't care how many disasters you have. Hell, I want you to make videos of them. We'll turn them into blooper reels and we'll just celebrate them. But I want you to just go nuts making mistakes. And through that philosophy, primarily that philosophy alone, he managed to accomplish something that NASA is still trying to figure out how to do. He managed to actually create a rocket that can not only take off, but can return to the ground and land itself.
Yes.
Which was, that's like science fiction.
Yes.
And he managed to pull that, and that's just like a little stepping stone to where he's going to be the one who's going to take the human race to Mars, well ahead of
Yeah.
NASA.
Yeah.
And he did that simply because he said, let's stop being afraid of failure. Let's stop being afraid of mistakes. Let's stop being afraid of things going wrong. Let's celebrate it and get as many things wrong as we can, because we're going to learn so much along the way.
Yeah. And that's that when you have that mindset that you reassign failure, it's a growth mechanism. I've been speaking this for a long time, that the growth mechanism of failure is you if you don't fail every day, you're not trying hard enough. You need to be failing every day. I fail every single day of my life. It's usually in the gym. That's a good thing. But I also, with all the success I've had in so many different areas, there's things that didn't work out. Okay, good, moved on. But the stuff that does work out over the years, I've micro invested, whether local companies or companies that I just sort of like, by $1,000 to $5,000, just with the infancy of companies, right? I've probably done that 30, 40 times over the years. Probably 25 of them, I never got anything back from. No big deal. Gone. Money's gone. 2 of them went crazy. And wow. You know what I'm saying? It's like way, way, way beyond anything I could possibly imagine. So yes, you could say, oh my gosh, you had a horrible fail rate. I did. My fail rate, when you're looking at the numbers, was really, really strong or bad, depending on where you're at. But the ones that hit were huge. And I had the money to lose. It was not a gamble. It was an investment that didn't pay off. Mindset. I knew some of them were going to hit, and I don't mind supporting businesses like that. I have one company that I've invested more than that in, and it seemed like a no-brainer. It was going to take off. However, during the pandemic, supply chain stuff really messed them up. The owner of the company was very adamant that he could only do it this way. He wouldn't take direction or take advice, and just he couldn't get product out. He had a huge demand. He was backed up 3 months, and he wouldn't change his supply chain concept. It was bizarre that he wouldn't. It was almost like he was stubborn. And while the company's still around, it's the rocket takeoff it possibly had. It just I doubt it's going to make it. But again, mindset matters, and the concept of not being able. Yeah. And so I love when people realize what's going right today. There's a narrative of what's going wrong. What's going right is every day there's new stuff coming along. Walt, I'm just fascinated by the new stuff. I'm an old guy.
It's amazing.
So when I'm looking at stuff, it's like, I have people ask me all the time, why are you so into all of this? You could just not do anything. I go, I could, but how ungodly bad would that be for my brain? It would be terrible. I love new stuff, and the next thing's around the corner that's going to be greater and greater. If you believe that, it's all good. If you believe the other version, it's all bad. And both stories are true.
You brought something out in that reference to the one investment you made that you thought was going to be really great, but the guy had a resistant mindset, and he only wanted to do it one way. It brings out a really important point, because we've been talking here quite a bit about how you're going to go through failures, you're going to go through mistakes and learn from them and so forth. Well, the key aspect of that is you have to be willing to learn from it. If you aren't willing to learn from the mistakes, if you're constantly looking for a way of saying it's something else that's at fault, it's some other person or some other process or whatever, I'm not the one who made the mistake here, you're not going to make the success. Your friend there is a perfect example of that. He just refused to buy into the idea that he was causing the problem. And you got to be willing to you got to be honest with yourself. You got to be brutally honest with yourself sometimes. Painfully.
I agree. And I offered to come out, and I said, look, I'll take a month off. I'll come up there and let's just brainstorm and fix it. I promise we'll have it done in a month. I'll have it done in 2 weeks, and I'll watch it happen. And he goes, I'm not ceding control of the company to you. And I didn't say I'm taking over control of the company. I'm going to come up. He was so fearful that, number one, and I told him, I said, I think you're probably equally scared of me being successful because you wouldn't have been right. I think you're probably scared with that. And he hung up on me, and he didn't have me up there, but get the point. It's, but nonetheless, it was a brilliant idea. It It was a great product, and also another thing, this dips into my upcoming soon, hopefully, book, The Law of Action.
I got to put a little comment here. I love the fact that the Law of Action book has been an ongoing development. And I keep thinking to myself, it's action. It's a long process of action to get there. I mean, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, really.
The Law of Action has had a lot of action attached to it. It just keeps going in its own direction. It's way too big. My problem now isn't content. If I were to publish it as it sits right now, it's 1,600 pages.
Oh my God. It's an encyclopedia.
It is. So I got to get it down to about 300 pages to keep the enthusiasm. I mean, it's crazy. So, but the idea too, sometimes, and this is where the law of attraction is amazing. Sometimes if you keep your mind open or you're listening and you allow failure, not only does it eventually get you what you want, but also could lead to other possibilities that you weren't even thinking about. In discovery of things, there's all kinds of times that somebody, in the process of developing this, found this, and it turned out, oh my gosh, that's much more important than what we were originally doing. That's incredible when those things happen. So that's what's exciting is you trust the process, the resilience and going what you're after, and also be open to opportunities that weren't the original, be able to pivot a little bit at times.
Yeah, well, this is again part of what the learning process is. And again, I'm thinking about your friend who was just so, resistant, so it had to be his way, and he was so fearful that somebody else would try to take it over, and it had to, he knew the only approach that could work and all that kind of thing. And like you described, it sounds like that company is on its way out. Even that, though, is valuable. Because he's gone through a horrible experience in one sense, but he's gone through a wonderful experience in the other, because he's really brought home to himself in a way that ultimately he's not going to be able to avoid. He'll try perhaps for years, but he's ultimately not going to be able to avoid the fact that he buried himself. And at some point, that's going to sink in some way, maybe even a bit, maybe not all the way through, but it's going to sink in some way, and it's going to stimulate him to do a next thing. It won't be that project. It'll be another project, but it'll stimulate him to do something else and to do it a little bit differently. Yeah. And that's the growth process.
And that, the failures eventually they could be big failures like this for him, be micro failures. Mm-hmm. But you hope the key is to never give up. Also the art, I've used this term before. To me, the definition of being humble is the art of remaining teachable. As long as you're teachable and you can learn, that's humility to me. You don't know it all. I am the first person to tell I don't know it all at all. I mean, I'm always after more. You know that. I'm just fascinated with everything. Like, the squirrel chasing the shiny thing. Ooh, look at that. I always want that stuff. So, that mindset brings more things that you can discover and find, and it gets exciting. But that's where we live in these times with the right mindset, and our phone, this silly phone here, has access to so much stuff. It's just limitless. It's out there, but yet, that doesn't apply to me. That can't work. I'm cursed. I'm this or I'm that, and the inability to fail. One of my posts today was on Facebook, and this will circle back to is that there's so many people that have the need of people's approval. They want the need of people's approval, and there's a lot of reasons why that's probably the case. But beyond that, those people are also the ones that are always very fearful of failing where people can see. They don't want to see struggle. They don't want to present struggle. And I can relate to that because I was very fearful early in my young adulthood because of the way things operated in my hometown and my family was. When everything fell apart for me, my big fear was people, not that what happened was terrible, but people knowing that I failed. I was like, there's a scarlet letter and on me that, oh my gosh, he's a failure. He's this or he's that. And now I boldly proclaim my failures and own them and love them. And without my failures back then, I wouldn't be who I am today. It's really that simple. The life I have today was a series of catastrophic failures for a while, mostly induced by my crazy, but they were failures. But also those skills learned during failures and the things, I wouldn't be talking to you or doing shows on the law of attraction if I didn't have to discover, if I didn't have the opportunity to discover the law of attraction after catastrophic failures. That's when I got into this stuff. It's the most life-changing thing I've ever experienced. And that wouldn't have been there. I could have, I'm horrified, not really, but the idea that, because it couldn't have happened, but somebody asked the other day, if everything didn't fall apart working for your dad's insurance company and you were still living in your hometown, running that company to this day, do you ever wish that happened? I'm like, I am so horrified that could have happened. No disrespect to my dad's company, but me and selling insurance was ridiculous. It was terrible. Sitting behind a desk for 40 hours talking about car insurance. Wow. Just not my thing. So it was never destined to go, but I needed to fail I wasn't going to quit. I had to fail my way out of it. I failed horribly in that industry. And now I'm so grateful that I did.
Yeah. Look how well it paid off for you to decide, that wasn't for me. I'm going to go do something that is for me. Boy, that was huge.
Well, and by the way, to be fair, in full disclosure, I didn't decide I was doing something else. My dad, the police, and everybody else. So just to be fair.
Well, the universe does have a way to kind of kick you in the shins if you're not going the right direction. It does that.
I had a lot of motivation, a lot of forced motivation. I jokingly tell people all the time, my life was really unmanageable for a while. In fact, it was so unmanageable, the state of Florida insisted on managing it for me for a while. They did. So but again, a necessary process.
Yeah, I hear you. One of the things I want to bring in here, I think this probably carries us through to the end of the show today, but it's something we haven't really touched on. And I think it's pretty important. It's something that I have learned to appreciate quite a lot since doing this podcast and talking to a lot of so many successful people in so many different fields, because the same theme plays over and over again. You were mentioning earlier how if you want to get a side hustle going, go do the research, learn how to do it. I mean, certainly the internet is accessible at our fingers. You can Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever you want to use to find all this stuff that you want to find out. But there's also something else that we can do, and it kind of gets thrown to the side at times because, again, the fears get in the way. And that is to find somebody else who's done it and get their help. I mean, that's what the whole idea of coaching is all about. Coaching is somebody who's already been there and done that, helping you to get through to the thing that you want to have been there and done. And there's a whole lot to be said for not having to reinvent a wheel, not having to reinvent a whole process. It's not like we have to create something that no one else has ever done. I mean, you named some really cool stuff here that people had never really done before, but you don't actually have to do something that nobody's ever really done in order to create a successful side hustle. You can do something that other people have done that maybe thousands of people have done and still turn it into something successful. And in fact, that's really the best opportunity to find somebody who's already done it, because there's so many of them out there on whatever that topic or that field is. There are other people who have done it. So it's really just a question of finding that person, saying, hey, could you coach me on this? Could you be my mentor? Could you help me through?
Yeah. And on a side note or attached to that is, in my neighborhood, we have, I don't know how many homes, a bunch of homes, hundreds of homes. They're spread out all over the place. And, it's your typical planned neighborhood with an HOA, 0 star rating on that HOA concept. But anyway, beside that, our mailboxes are all the same, identical. They have to be the same.
Right.
And that's not a big problem, but they're all put in the same. So this young man, a few years ago, he got his mom to post on Facebook. He had a brilliant idea. Over years, people use the weed eaters on the bottom of the mailbox to eat it up. The thing fades, the mailbox itself darkens, the letters, So this kid came up with, I will paint your I'll sand and putty and do whatever I need to do and repaint your mailbox pole, put new letters on it. For another fee, I'll do a new mailbox. And he had these services anywhere from $50 to $150, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm like, yes, let's do that. I mean, that was so simple. It was no brainer. I just basically gave him a check. He did it over let it dry, did it over a day. Looks brand new, fantastic. He probably, I wish I knew the number. He might have done 100 homes that summer, doing at least 50, maybe 150 in one summer.
Wow.
brilliant. Sometimes right in front of you, the most obvious thing there. I saw one on Instagram today. I'm always following these things. There's this young man. I would never thought of this in years. He knock on people's door and he said, I will detail your grill to back to new for $100. He goes into everybody, he details, he gets all the soot off, he polishes the outside, scrapes it down, starts it, and he's making a fortune. People love to have their, 4 or 5 year old grills are really nasty usually.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, not that they're unhealthy because the heat kills everything, but it looks terrible. So he's making a lot of money. Then people said, well, I need a new grade. So he would go buy the grade, the thing that meat goes on, and then get a profit on that. He started learning how to replace the burner. So he was making up $300 or $400 on some of these higher end grills, and that's summer gigs. It's just brilliant idea. There's stuff out there that if you keep your eyes open, there's people that would be glad. Washing windows is a new old side hustle. Nobody washes windows anymore. Nobody does their own windows. Housekeepers don't windows. So go charge whatever $1 per window in your house and go get that. I mean, there's people going around washing windows. It takes a squeegee and a few chemicals and you're good. And wow. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be internet or tech savvy stuff right in front of us, especially in today's economy. People love convenience. They love stuff like that.
Yeah. And I wanted to throw something else out too on the theme of getting help from somebody who's already been there. Because I really do think that's an important theme. One of the thoughts that comes to my mind is the many people who I have interviewed over the years doing this podcast who have been successful. They've created their own successful business, not just side hustle. They've created their successful businesses. Their incomes come from these things. And one of it's one of those questions that I ask lots of questions as I'm doing these interviews. It's one of those questions that you kind of throw in occasionally. You don't really think about it in terms of creating a pattern. But over time, I realized there was a pattern there. And that is the most common successful person in business for themselves came from a family where people were in business for themselves. In other words, they had a built-in structure to teach them how to be in business for themselves. So there's a perfect example of how if you have somebody who's already been there, they can help you get there.
Absolutely.
Well, you don't have to be born into a family of entrepreneurs in order to have that happen. That's just kind of an indication of, well, that's what works. You want to have that kind of support structure there. In an era where there are coaching, my God, I mean, you know this, you're a coach. Coaching has exploded over the last 20 years. I mean, 20 years ago, finding a coach to do anything would have been really, really tough. Now you can find a coach for any possible topic you can imagine. I mean, they're just all over the place. So it's not like you have to have a family of entrepreneurs in your family to be a successful entrepreneur. You can go find one. Just go through the archives of LOA today. You'll find about 150 of them. There are just so many people out there who literally have made it their careers helping other people to be successful in their careers, in their side hustles, in their enterprises, whatever it might be. But that's become a thing, and it's become a thing because it works. Yeah. It works really, really well.
It does. And that's the, I love this spin too, asking people to be your mentor, they're, and whatever that means. I mean, not a lot of people, I have new coaches in Richmond in 2013. I'm unaware of any other life coaches. There may have been, but I couldn't find them. Mm-hmm. And now there's tons of them. And, when people come into town, I've had a few of them reach out to me and say, well, I mean, seem like you're the busiest one in town. What's going on? What did you do? And I'm glad to talk to them. And I said, I'll refer you people if, if they're a good match. And, I told him, one of the things that got me started, I had my mentor, Dr. Master, that did a lot of referrals to me, but I also went to every doctor in town, every psychiatrist, every therapist, gave them my information, say, please refer people if you need additional assistance. Some of them didn't like the idea. The few that did became, and then eventually doctors started saying, wow, he's sort of good with whatever we can't figure out. And then you develop that. And so
right.
I give people this advice. I'm not in competition with these people. There's plenty of stuff to do, but finding mentors, finding people to give you advice, they're just ask. And don't be pushy. Don't ask. I always tell somebody, if you email me asking a question like that, I will get to you. It might be a week, but I will get to you. I got to put clients first, got to put other stuff first, but I'll get to it. I had one guy wanted to ask for help. He said, could I pick your brain? I'm a new life coach in town. And again, that email gets put aside. Let me answer the other stuff. About 3 days later, he goes, I guess you're not going to help me.
Oh, yeah.
I go, well, I'm not now, but
you just talked me out of it.
yeah, I did either way. And also something.
You did anyway? Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. But that was part of the first thing I said. I said, you're asking somebody to do something for you for free. You just sit back and see if you don't 3 days later ask. If you do need to follow up, do it really nicely. Don't give a pissy attitude. And actually, absolutely. Ironically, he's very successful now, and we have lunch together, so he laughs about that. But one of the things too that I said before we went on air, I'm really grateful this week in particular, because when we used to do the show, I was always comically unprepared. I never knew what we were going to talk about ever, right? And I always enjoyed doing that.
True.
Over since I've been back as co-host, I've been relatively prepared every week.
Mm-hmm.
This week, I was totally caught off guard, and it's been very fun for me to get back to the old way of doing it. I didn't know the topic till right before we went on air.
Right.
Awesome topic, and it really, I didn't even have to prepare. It's right in my wheelhouse. So thank you for that. I'll be prepared next week. Next week I'm out of town, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And we'll talk about that. We may be able to make it happen from the bench in Florida. I don't know.
You're going to be at the bench. Oh, okay.
I'll be at the bench. So if it does, I'll let you know, and maybe we could do it at the bench.
That'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be different. I'd like that.
Yeah. Maybe.
All right.
We'll see. We'll see. So.
Okay. Well, so maybe there's a show next week. Maybe not. We'll see. But I think it's going to play out the way it needs to play out. That always happens. So
absolutely guarantee that.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. This has been a good topic. And I also agree with you. We do tend to do best when we freewheel. When we plan stuff works out good. We've had some great topics. We had your friend who was on. That was a wonderful show. That was all planned having him on there,
Yes.
But when we just kind of freestyle, I guess our creative juices get going in a way that wouldn't normally happen, because we're kind of making it up as we go along. And when we're making it up as we go along, we're kind of digging deep. And that's when you're going to get the good stuff, right? Because you're digging deep.
Yeah, and you're not, when I'm prepared, there's value in that, as you're saying. I like to be able to bring a lot to the topic, but today, not knowing what we're doing, it just we were able to really just give up some great stuff, just totally impromptu, but it goes deeper in the brain. It hits that subconscious information, comes out easier as you're talking. Oh, by the way, you remember this guy, remember this guy, remember this guy.
Right.
And it does help. So fantastic show. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Oh, I absolutely love it too. So whether or not we talk to you next week or the following week, we will see you again. It's going to be good stuff when that happens as well. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.